So I can tell you with reasonable certainty that the sole purpose for this piece of equipment, the DJI Osmo Pocket 3, is basically to make you look slightly less like an idiot. Because let's face it, you're always gonna look a little bit stupid walking around, filming and talking to yourself.
Okay, so I've got a bit of a confession to make. I bought the Osmo Pocket 3 around when it first came out in January of 2024. And I made this video and then didn't release it. And that was due to a number of different challenges that came up at the time. But I still feel like I want to release this video because it is a great look at a first impression of the Osmo Pocket 3, which I think is still totally relevant. And also a bit of a look at the city of Vancouver during a unique winter they were having. And of course I have a little more experience using this camera now. So at the end of this video, I've included some notes on what I used it for over the last year and a half, how I used it, and how I feel about it now. So if you want to skip to that part, by all means go ahead. But in the meantime, back to the winter of 2024 in Vancouver. One of the impressive things about this is the startup time. So, I mean, it really only takes a couple seconds before you can get going and record. I mean, that is amazing. Same thing when you shut it off. It's gonna give me the option to go into portrait mode, or it just turns off and it locks itself in there. I mean, you can, within a couple of seconds, be up and running and shooting, ready to go. It truly fits in your pocket, hence the name Pocket. And it's a still camera, a video camera, a gimbal. It allows for smooth tracking shots. It allows you to film yourself. It's got advanced tracking features so that you can film yourself in motion. It will track you as you move. It's great that you can just hit a button and film yourself. That's kind of cool. With one hand, you can do most of the things that you need to do with this. You can switch to different frame rate or resolution. You can go into the menu preferences and format a card or calibrate the gimbal or do any of these other types of settings that are a little more advanced. You can switch to vertical mode very easily, which allows you to shoot social media content on the fly in the vertical format that you find on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, all that kind of stuff. To be able to go that easily from 16:9 landscape to vertical portrait mode, I think is a huge win for this camera. And I think for people that are creating content for social media, this is an incredible little device. My first impressions of this were obviously very positive. I was able to get it out of the box and start using it more or less right away without having to think too hard. I do have an Osmo action camera, so I am familiar with some of the menu interface and the icons that are in the DJI menus. It's a little different than, say, GoPro, so depending on which ecosystem you're in for action type cameras, you know, there could be a little bit of a learning curve with this, but overall it's pretty easy. Once you figure out, you know, how to format a memory card, where all the sort of features are located, and which way to swipe on the menu, it's quite simple to use. The image quality is great. Once I had the video in the computer, it looks a lot like what you'd find from a DJI Mavic drone. I shoot with the Mavic 3 and it's very comparable to that. It does have a 1-inch sensor, which is great. So you're getting, you know, just a higher quality image. Obviously, like the bigger the sensor is, the bigger the starting point for your image is, and you're just gonna have a little bit better quality than something that's got a much smaller sensor. The stability that the gimbal provides is great. You can do some really good moving shots without too much extra jitter or bounce. And DJI is obviously really good at that. It's quite impressive. The other thing that is a real showstopper with this is the microphone. And I've tried all these different kinds of mics. I kind of come from the old school of sound where, you know, originally I was using Sennheiser wireless mics that were recording, you know, via transmitter and receiver into an XLR input on the camera. And there was no backup recording or anything like that. You can plug a normal lavalier microphone into here via the 3.5 millimeter input. So if you have another type of lav that you prefer to use, then that is a great option. It also comes with a furry for the wind. You can record a backup recording in here, although I think you actually have to hit record for it to be making that recording, whereas with the Rodes, it records automatically if you set it up that way. Basically, this DJI mic is also a transmitter, and it transmits the sound back to the Osmo, which has a built-in receiver. You can also use your existing DJI mics, so if you already have them, you don't need to buy the Creator combo. You can just use your existing mics with this device. But I opted for the Creator combo more or less because of the microphone. I'm not sure that any of the other included extras really warrant the extra price, but this definitely does. And even though I'm well equipped with all kinds of other sound devices, I can definitely see using this as a just in case yeah, having this along for the ride with the Osmo Pocket is a great idea. The Pocket 3 has a built-in microphone, which is on the screen side of the camera. And that's great for doing sort of a narrative while you're walking and talking and filming. And the audio from that is pretty good. However, pairing it with this, the DJI Mic 2 is, I mean, it just changes the game. I mean, this thing is also so small, portable, easy to throw in your pack, easy to use. When you go to sync this thing, whether the microphone's on or off, when you start the camera, it doesn't really matter. You turn everything on and it just connects. If your microphone's already on, when you flip the screen on and the Osmo Pocket powers up, it's going to connect right away to the mic, which I think is just phenomenally easy. Gone are the days of really having to screw around trying to find the right frequency that doesn't have interference. You also have the ability to have a backup recording on here, which is also very good. So if for some reason there is interference or you go too far away from the receiver in the Pocket 3, then you're still going to have the backup recorded audio, which will be in the highest quality with zero interference. So that gives you a little bit of a fail-safe. It is a little bit consumer-like. I'm not sure I love having this mounted to my chest in an interview or while I'm filming, because I just think it's distracting, especially with the dead cat furry on top. It's just a little bit much, but I think there are ways that you can cleverly kind of hide this as well. So I see a lot of content where the microphones are all exposed, and it's really not that much different, I guess, than when you see a lav on somebody's shirt. But for me, I think I want to try and hide these things as much as possible. I think anything that takes away from the story that you're telling, like a giant furry thing on your chest, is just weird, and you don't want to distract from the story you're trying to tell. So there are a bunch of really cool shooting modes, from active track to spin shot, and all kinds of other things. So I'm going to have to play around and experiment with some of these, because it's just not really my style to use some of the goofy fun features, but which I would consider to be almost like the star wipe of the current filmmaking generation. But it does look like there's some neat stuff in here, and I'm definitely going to try it out. Also, you can change the gimbal mode to different things like FPV, lock the tilt, so that you can actually do certain types of shots. So that's really cool. There's a face tracker for selfie mode, which I think is awesome. Overall, yeah, there's a lot of different features in here that it's probably going to take me a while to figure out how to use them, or just when I'm going to use them, or when they'll be useful. But I mean, it seems to be a feature-rich little camera. The image sensor has its limitations as well, but it is pretty good. I mean, I shoot with a lot of the Mavic products, and I often am cutting footage from a Mavic drone into a much higher end ProRes RAW or RAW kind of recorded environment, and the DJI drone footage holds up really well. And so this I would compare with that in terms of quality. It is 10-bit 422 D-Log, which allows you to do color grading and gives you this sort of flat profile and a wide dynamic range, so that you can fine-tune things in post later to whatever the look of your project is. It just gives you a lot more options. I mean, the difference between 8-bit and 10-bit is huge, and that's a big step up in this particular camera as well. USB-C charging is real. Plus, I mean, that should be standard now. Anything that comes with micro USB as a charger is just so out of date. I think really image quality, size, audio. It has a great mobile app, the DJI Mimo, which allows you to connect and monitor what you're doing, and also activate some of the advanced tracking features, which is great. It comes in a couple of different configurations, but really at its kind of core, it's this small thing. I mean, if you look at it, it's tiny. It fits in the palm of your hand, easily packs up. And I think for situations where discrete filming might be required or just more desirable, maybe you don't want to carry around a huge gimbal with a mirrorless camera attached to it and walk around filming yourself. This is quite a nice way to create some content and video things that are happening in your day without having to bring a massive setup. It's got a handy little tripod that hooks onto the bottom, which can kind of extend the grip as well, but can also just sit on a table. You can use it that way, or you can put it, on the ground and have it follow you around, or on a table. Yeah, back to build quality. The early Mavic Pro drone, I actually ruined a gimbal by just throwing it in my backpack all the time and not putting the gimbal cover protector on. And I feel like this is similar to that. It does seem a little more robust, but it just doesn't seem like the most it's not the toughest thing, let's put it that way. So I'm gonna be careful with this. I think I would like to have something other than this to put it in. This thing just doesn't really do it for me. Maybe for traveling, putting it in my suitcase, I will use this, but there's gotta be some other kind of just top, easy to take on and off, almost like a lens cap that would kind of boot over this thing to protect the gimbal and also keep stuff off of the lens, because right now it's just kind of in there, and I noticed that when I was taking it in and out of my pocket I was getting like lint and stuff like that on there. Maybe I shouldn't have such linty pockets. But overall, yeah, build quality not bad. But it's definitely, this is not an action camera. This isn't something you're gonna toss around. Also, the USB and the memory card slot are exposed, which really means you can't get this thing wet at all. That's kind of a problem. It does have a nice little rubber, or I guess sort of somewhat grippier piece of plastic on the back here. Other negatives, limiting right out of the gate was not having ND. I wish that the Creator Combo came with an ND filter kit. That would have been a real plus. I think it should be mandatory to have that in here. The footage from the auto mode seems pretty good, but I want to have a little more control over that, and there's certainly going to be times where I'm just going to have to wing it and it's going to go into auto and we're just going to shoot whatever, and that's fine. But when it comes to setting up a scene a little bit more, I want to have the control over the image. And much like the DJI Mavic Air series of camera, the limitation of not being able to adjust the aperture I find kind of a pain. So the only way to really control your shutter speed is through ND, if you want to shoot at that sort of 180-degree shutter angle, which maybe for this type of footage isn't as relevant, but I think when you're trying to create good content from a cinematography standpoint, you definitely want to apply as many of the skills in your toolbox as you can, and I think that 180-degree shutter is very important for most filming, and I think in this particular instance being able to keep the shutter to 1/50th or 1/100th or something like that, that will give a nice motion blur and sort of cinematic look would be more advantageous. So ND is really a critical thing, and that should have come in the Creator Combo as far as I'm concerned. The wide angle adapter is cool, it's neat, it clips on. It doesn't really make it that much wider. I'm not finding this that useful, and also when you go to turn it off, you probably should take this adapter off, because then it can't close properly. It kind of gets stuck like that. Anyway, so I'm not sure. I would have swapped the wide angle adapter for some ND filters in a second. That would have been my number one pick on this. Well, it does need a V30 rated card, micro SD. And for 32 gigs, it says it 4K 24p. It's going to give me 46 minutes roughly of footage, which is great. In 60, it goes down to about 35 minutes. In terms of battery life, yesterday I took this thing around. I shot tons of stuff all over the place as I was going about my day. I went for a jog. I took it with me. I filmed. I burned through the memory card before I got anywhere close to depleting the battery. So in my 32 gig card, I shot 45 minutes of footage out in the cold. It was pretty chilly. Not, Arctic conditions, but certainly cold. And I think I got down to about 60% battery. So I used up about 40% of the battery out there in the cold, shooting 45 minutes worth of footage. So the battery life is actually quite good. And I didn't even use this additional battery pack, which I think would be useful, but now that I know that the battery's so good, I'm honestly not sure that I would have sprung for this extra battery handle. It makes it quite a bit bigger, which maybe is useful if you're looking for more grip, or if you have huge hands. But I think that, for me, I don't think that I'm going to use this battery as much as I thought I would. I think the only real advantage now that I think about it in the Creator Combo is the mic. So if you don't have a microphone already, this is a great add, and that in alone makes it worth it. But I might consider, maybe not buying the Creator Combo and buying a separate set with two of these, and buying some ND and things like that. I guess you get some other doodads like this tiny tripod thing, but these are cheap. You can buy stuff like this on Amazon quite easily. I can't really see a lot of other negatives with this. I mean, other than build quality and some limitations around how you control the exposure, it's such a cool little device. I remember I saw the first Osmo Pocket in Japan when it first came out. I went to a camera shop and looked at it and thought, you know what, that's really cool. But the technology wasn't quite there yet. And like many things in the camera world, I seem to wait until the third iteration of something before I, plunk down the money and purchase it. And that's true with this as well. The Osmo Pocket 2 was a great device as well, but I feel like the third one, the Pocket 3, this one has really crossed into the territory where I can just see so many uses for this. This is one of the only things that's come out in the last little while that I felt like I really needed to have. It really is a category defining device. There's nothing else out there like this. It's not an action camera, it's not a mirrorless. It's so small and lightweight and easy to carry around. So if you're a content creator looking to film yourself or film vlog type content, I think you can't go wrong with this. I think in combination with the DJI Mic 2, this is a fantastic tool set. And if you've got the extra money lying around for an additional camera, this is probably one that you should have in your kit. So after a year and a half of using the Pocket 3, I have to say it's become a pretty useful little device. And it's more or less what I thought it was in the beginning. The gimbal is great. It's actually really good for picking up random shots for projects that you don't necessarily intend to do. Sometimes you're making a YouTube video, for example, and you just need a shot of walking through a city, and you either don't have your big camera or don't want to bring out a big camera setup. Like, I've often used this for just random pickup shots that I can fill into projects, especially YouTube videos or content type projects that maybe don't require the same level of quality as maybe a commercial grade project. I wouldn't film the entire project on this necessarily, but I have filled in little bits here and there, and it's been very useful for that. Often I'll take this out while I'm walking through a city, or just when I wasn't planning on filming, to get some additional footage that I can use later down the road. And it's very useful as kind of a C camera, if you want to call it. And certainly the quality is good enough to pass. I'd say, it's very similar to what you'd get out of a Mavic drone. Now, controlling some of the other features is a challenge. Obviously, I'd like to have full manual control of the aperture, because all this allows you to do is adjust the ISO and the shutter speed, but this has a fixed aperture lens. So the only way to make exposure adjustments outside of ISO, if you want to keep a 180-degree shutter at 1/50th of a second, is to use ND filters. And really, an ND filter should come with this thing. For those of you who don't know what a 180-degree shutter is, it's basically a rule that applies to a cinematic style of motion blur that is common in movies and really allows for the most natural kind of cinematic look when you're filming things. Other shutter angles will just look a little jittery or maybe more video-like without that kind of cinematic motion blur. If it's something that you don't already know about, it may not be the most important thing if you're just starting out making content, but it's something you'll certainly encounter if you decide to make more cinematic-looking videos. But for what it is and for the amount of footage that is actually making it into my bigger projects, it's totally fine. I also actually ended up using this as a C camera in a video podcast that I was making, and I did that partly because I had access to a larger FX6, but I was shooting everything by myself, and it just became too cumbersome to have 3 big cameras with a lot of manual settings to work with. I didn't really need the wide angle for much, so I used this as the wide angle just to show the studio view, and it was great. I've also used it as a behind the scenes camera, because when you're a solo creator, you don't really usually have somebody filming you doing anything. And these days with social media and marketing, it's nice to actually have some images or video of you doing the thing. So this has been a great camera to just kind of randomly set up in a corner while I'm setting up a shot and show some of the behind the scenes action while I'm working. I've also used this just for random vlogging. Sometimes, you're just not ready for something, but you have an idea. And between this and the Wireless Mic 2, it's just been such an easy setup to just quickly pop the camera up, mic on, everything connects seamlessly, doesn't take much effort, and I can just kind of spitball an idea into the camera just like that, without any setup or anything. And I think that is a hugely powerful tool. We get hung up on having everything be perfect. And I think in the content world, of course, as a professional, you want everything to look amazing, but there's sort of an element of in the moment that I think is coming back with storytelling. And I think this camera allows you to kind of really live in the moment that way and not be too hung up on gear. So yes, while I wouldn't use this for absolutely every shot, and I still want to mix in some more intentional footage, this can be a great way to just get some ideas out of your head. As a camera for a content creator, this can be an amazing tool. I've recommended it to numerous clients that want to go kind of one step north of smartphone videography and photography and start creating some content in a slightly more dynamic way. And this is a great sort of next stepping stone from your smartphone into the content creation world. And for the more established creator, I also feel like this is just such a great tool to document your own happenings, also to get ideas out in a quick way that's not very cumbersome,
And I think if you can let go of some of the professional tools and just really get into the aspect of storytelling, you can use this camera in a great way. For me personally, it's not going to become my main camera at any point, but I just find it so useful. For the money I paid for it is absolutely worth it. It's been a little problem solver in a bunch of different ways, and certainly has allowed me to kind of create content in a faster, more meaningful way without getting hung up on equipment and setups and all that, which is very hard to do when it's your job. In any case, I'll probably follow this up with a more in-depth look at how I feel about the Pocket 3 after over a year of use. But for now, we'll see you in the next video.